Let's have a conversation. Tell me what you think about the issues of the world. What kind of spice you wanna be? Tell me where you wanna travel. Do you believe in luxury? What's your hidden passion? What makes you so unique? Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. Today's discussion is on father hunger and its influence on girls and women. Dr. Huberta Jackson-Lowman, a professor of psychology at Florida A&M University, shares a historical context, effects, and community solutions. Let's listen in on the conversation. I want you to talk to us about what happens when that takes place.
Well, as you pointed out, this is really a very significant problem in our community today. But I think that for us to really understand this problem, that we need to look at the context.
Okay.
I know that the personal issues that we feel when we don't have a father in the home, they are very, very deep, and they do affect us in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to begin by looking at the larger context that fatherlessness occurs in.
Okay.
In my opinion, fatherlessness is a symptom, and a symptom of the continuation of our ma'afa.
Okay.
And ma'afa is a term that was coined by Marimba Ani, who's a cultural scientist. And she uses that term to describe the African Holocaust that we experience and continue to experience. So if we think about from slavery, and all of the losses that we experience, all of the trauma that we experience, the loss of land, our contact with the motherland, the loss of language, the loss of culture and traditions, all of the abuse and the separation of families that went on, the horror of slavery. And then we have, the end of chattel slavery. But that wasn't really the end.
Right.
Because then we have black codes, we still have black codes, we have Jim Crow with all the lynchings that went on. And then that continues with this institutionalization of racism into the policies that we operate under. And those policies then have resulted in us having less access to resources and opportunities in this country. And, we've been heaped with all kinds of injustices. So we have all kinds of things then that have helped to create the situation that we happen to be in. So fatherlessness because we have over-incarceration, fatherlessness because of our high rates of unemployment and underemployment. So there are a variety of different reasons why. But if we don't understand why we have these things occurring, then what happens when we attempt to address this issue is that we get into a blame game.
Okay.
We start to blame each other.
Right.
So why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do as the quote-unquote father of the children?
Right.
And not, taking into consideration all of the challenges, the stresses, the trauma. And the trauma, we have to think about this, how trauma affects us.
Right.
And now there's a lot of research out there now that tells us that trauma is affecting us and has affected us at the genetic level, and that is transmitted from one generation to the next.
Let me take a pause here. If you're just joining us, I have Dr. Huberta Jackson-Lowman, a psychologist and a professor at Florida A&M University. We are speaking about fatherlessness and father hunger, in particular how it affects girls and women. So, carry on.
So, this is the larger context in which this occurs. But, we live in a society where our knowledge of our history is very limited. We don't know much of our history. Even our history, recent history, as well as our history in terms of slavery, is certainly not our history prior to our enslavement.
Right.
So we don't know about our culture, our traditions, our rituals, We only have the information that has been presented to us for the most part. And much of that is either absent in terms of the history book or it's presented in a way that's really not accurate.
So let me ask you, from a developmental standpoint, how important is the male acceptance, recognition, energy in the life of a girl growing up? So let me ask you, from a developmental standpoint, how important is the male acceptance, recognition, energy in the life of a girl growing up?
Well, it is. It's very important, you know, to have that balance of the masculine and the feminine energy. Because the masculine energy also affirms our femininity. It's a validation of our beauty, of our worth and value, that kind of a thing. So it is very important to have that. And there are other things that happen too, because we know that in homes where there are no fathers, the girls would tend to develop physically faster.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. And so there are a lot of implications perhaps that might be associated with prematurity, so to speak. And that sometimes that craving for that father figure can be displaced into their relationships with men, perhaps maybe older men, who they're actually seeking that affirmation and that love from in place of what they're not getting from their father. And that can a lot of times place them in very risky kinds of situations, situations where they might be exposed to abuse, situations where they may actually deny aspects of themselves in order to maintain a relationship. You know, having the father becomes so important to them that they will give up aspects of who they are in order to have that person in their life.
And that could be a dangerous thing.
That can be very dangerous.
So how do you think we combat this in terms of, you know, with fathers not being present or without there being a male figure to nurture a healthy relationship with girls as they mature into women? What can be done to, you know, fill that void?
Right, exactly. Well, first I think we need to understand the importance of culture. And our culture has been very systematically undermined. And we've lost a lot because of our inability to maintain a lot of the rituals or traditions that we once had. I think that having traditions, rituals, and processes like rites of passage are very important. If we look back at our history, pre-colonial history that is, in the motherland, basically what you find is that you didn't just become a man because you turned a certain age, that there were certain processes, certain rituals that you had to go through. And you had to learn and understand what it meant to be a man in the context of that particular society. You had to understand what your role was as a man. So we don't have any of that kind of preparation that allows us to understand how it is we are to function as men and women. We look too much, I think, to larger society to give us that direction. And so we need to begin to restore that. Another thing that I would also suggest too is something that I refer to as cultural policy. And it's actually a term that was developed by Jerome Taylor. And basically what that is that we have to recreate in our communities the culture that we once had that reflects our values and our traditions and our rituals.
So instituting rites of passages.
Yes, we have to do that. But we have to also go a little bit further. We have to create policy that articulates what our expectations of each other are.
I see.
And so, for example, I might say that it is our responsibility as a community to nurture fathers so that they can be loving, supportive, and nurturing of their children. And that has to be a policy that's adopted by the entire community. And by that I mean that, if I'm the mother of children, then what do I do to support the father of my children so that he can be a good father? If I am a community-based organization, what does that community-based organization do to support men in being good fathers?
So now we're talking about parenting skills. We may be talking about assisting with job skills, whatever it's going to take to help that father to be the best father that he can be.
Exactly. But it's a collective responsibility.
Right.
It's not just an individual responsibility that's just on that man. He needs a support system.
Right.
We all need support systems, by the way. But all of the community needs to be engaged in recognizing the importance of our fathers actually fathering their children. And so the business owner has a role to play in that. Religious institutions have a role to play in that. Educators have a role to play in that. There's something that each of us can do to help to support fathers to be good fathers.
I like that.
So that's one of the things that I think the corrections that we have to begin to make. We have allowed ourselves to be too assimilated into a society that doesn't necessarily have our best interests at heart and doesn't necessarily reflect our values and traditions. And we have also, succumbed a lot to the stressors that we're constantly facing. So culture really serves as our immune system.
Okay.
It protects us, it defends us against those things that are not in our best interest.
Excellent. So cultural policy, I hope to see more about that, and hopefully we'll have you come back. Maybe we'll see more on that in the community, in our community here locally and at large. So I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. Stay tuned for more conversations.
So I get this compliment that I'm a good father. People tell me all the time, "Hey, you're a good daddy. You're a good father," because they always see me with my babies. I'm always with my babies, and the truth is that I'm a good father. When I look into the mirror and I analyze myself, I'm a good father. But at the same time, it's not because I'm a good father. It's just because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Chris Rock said a joke. He had a joke. He said that I take care of my kids. He said, "You're supposed to take care of your kids." I take care of my kids, and it's not nothing that I'm getting any honor. I'm supposed to get any honor for, any recognition for. I just do it. You ain't got to tell me to take care of my babies. You don't have to tell me to. It's not a it's not a reward at the end of the year that I'm looking for because I take care of my babies. I pushed them out. I pushed them out. They came out of me first. And if we had this mindset when it comes to our babies, then it shouldn't be I'm a good daddy because I take care of my kids. I pushed the babies out. Ayana came out of me. Derrick Jr. came out of me. So what I look like? Planting my seed and not fertilizing the seed. Certain mindsets have to be broken if we are in order to lay a foundation for our children to build upon. Now, if you don't have children, that's a different story. You do what you want to do with your money. But if you got children, you have to make certain sacrifices for your babies. You got to make certain sacrifices for your babies. For instance, I didn't have a retirement account. I didn't have a retirement account until Ayana was born. Because the retirement money is my baby's money. That's Ayana's and Derrick Jr.'s money. Yeah, we got to start learning how to build foundations that they can build upon. So, in response to me being a good father, I thank you graciously taking. I'm humbled by the kind words, but I'm a good father not because of the recognition, because it's just part of the duties. It's just a part of the duties. I can't let my wife just take care of the kids, so I get in there and change some diapers. I get in there and feed my son. And also, that's why the grind is is a beautiful grind. That's why now when we're out, Ayana, when somebody holds the door for Ayana, she says, "Thank you very much." Because we say it all the time in front of her. So we want her to, show gratitude for everything. Say thank you. When she gets older, she's going to be the one filling out the thank you cards. I know she will be the one. We send out thank you cards when we get blessings. We give thank you cards and we send out thank you cards. So when Ayana, she probably can write the thank you cards already. Because Ayana, she shocks me every day. She knows her letters. She says her letters. She writes her letters. She too.
Welcome back to Conversations with Nicole. Joining me now is Lucretia Battles. She is a married mother of 10 who has suffered with her own father hunger issues. Welcome, Lucretia.
Hi, Nicole. It's nice to be here.
So tell me about your father. You told me before that he was absent from your life, and tell me what effect that had on you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Just a brief summary. I grew up in a single parent home. At the age of 3, my father was actually incarcerated until I was about 8 years old. During that time, I was so young, really, I didn't understand his absence. To me, it was almost like a dream. He was gone, and then the day that he came and walked up to my door, to me, that was Superman arriving.
Right, your hero.
My hero, coming to rescue me. But little did I know that our family was not going to be back together. My mom decided not to reunite with my dad, therefore leaving her to raise, at that time, 3 children alone.
Right.
During that experience, I did experience hunger. Not knowing that's what it was, that is what it was, but I knew I had a desire for my father.
And tell me about the situation that you were living in, the conditions that you were living in at the time when your father was released from prison.
Yes, ma'am. At that time when my mom left, was separated from my dad. We moved with my grandmother, who at the time also had one of her other kids, which was my aunt living with her, and she had 5 kids. So it was a total of about 13 people in a 3-bedroom home.
Wow.
Yes. So
this is why you really wanted your dad to be your hero, to
Yes.
rescue you from that situation.
Yes, ma'am.
When you saw that your dad wasn't going to be reuniting with your mother, it was devastating to you because you thought he was going to be there to rescue you, correct?
Yes, ma'am. To me, that was the beginning, really, of my emptiness. That was the beginning of my longing for a father. Not only was he absent, but he was able to be there.
So he was able to be there, but he wasn't.
Right. So that added to the hurt. That added to what I call my first heartbreak. There was a stream of continuous lies.
From your dad?
From my dad.
So a lot of disappointment.
A lot of disappointment, a lot of hurt.
Broken promises.
Yes, a lot.
So did you find it difficult to deal with boys as you were coming of age? Or did you find yourself gravitating more to them, being more curious about them? I know as a teenager, you got the hormones going and you become curious because I'm sure they are curious about you. So what was your experience like in adolescence growing up?
So going into adolescence, of course, yes, my hormones going up, and at that time there was no father present in my life. However, I knew that there was males, so I became curious about the opposite sex and began to seek after that.
Right.
Not knowing that I was seeking for what my father was supposed to be giving me.
So love and attention and affection
attention, acceptance, affection. So I'll say as early as the age of 12, I began to date, be promiscuous, dress in inappropriate ways, to get that attention.
Right.
You know, at that time, I didn't know that's what I was doing, but it was the reaction from the opposite sex that encouraged me to keep doing it.
Right.
Because to me, it was feeling the emptiness
That
was there because
Right.
of the absence of my father.
Gotcha. Wow. So you met your husband.
Yes. Because
Right.
of the absence of my father.
Gotcha. Wow. So you met your husband.
Yes. Currently, my husband, I met him at the age of 12.
Okay.
And we began dating at the age of 14.
Right.
I was 14, he was 15.
Uh-huh.
By the age of 16, I was giving birth to my first child.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
And you all got married when?
we were married a year after I graduated from high school. I
Okay.
was 19, he was
Okay.
20. We continued to have children.
Uh-huh. Because you
We
have
could
10.
see, yes,
Right.
every year after that. But I would say, when it comes to my marriage and my father hunger, that affected my marriage a lot.
You did.
Because I went into marriage not knowing a male. I went into a marriage not knowing what to expect from a male, how a male was supposed to react, or how to treat a male. So my husband had to practically be a father to me before he could be a husband.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah.
So do you credit your father with helping you work through your fatherlessness issues and your father hunger?
Well, me and my father have never, because he's still alive, been able to gain a relationship.
Okay.
We can call and say, hey, how you doing, talk. But as far as a father-daughter relationship, I have never been able to gain that with my earthly father.
And how do you feel about that even now? What's your thoughts about that?
Right now, when it comes to a relationship with my father, I have forgiven that. At the age of 18, when I became into the knowledge of Christ, when I say got saved, I began to talk to God and really cry out to him, like a baby. I want my daddy.
Wow.
And I wanted to know why my father wasn't there.
Have you talked to your father about him not being there?
Yes. Before I talked to him, I had to make up my mind to forgive him first before I even approached him. In my heart, I had already forgiven him.
And what has his response been to your talking to him about it?
Well, when I approached him and asked him why he decided not to be there, why he decided not to be a part of my life or his kid's life, period, his response was that because we reminded him so much of our mother, and he was unable to have a relationship with our mother, that he would rather not have a relationship with the kids.
Wow.
To me, that was selfish.
Very. And that's his loss.
But
Because you all are not your mother.
I'm not my mother.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
But because I went into that conversation with him with a heart of forgiveness, I accepted his answer. And all I could say was thank you for being honest, and let him know that I forgave him. And through forgiving him, I allow a door to open in my life for my relationship with God. I began to accept that no, my father would not be there. However, I do have a father. I have a spiritual father who will love me greater than a father on this earth. So through my forgiving my father in heaven has been able to nurture me. So now even in my relationship with my husband, I'm able to be a wife. And now he can be a husband because I have accepted my Father in heaven.
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, I really thank you for joining us and for taking the time to share your experience of fatherlessness and father hunger. So I appreciate that, Lucretia.
Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Nicole, where we connect the community through conversations. For more information on this or previous shows, visit Conversations with Nicole on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I am Nicole Everett, and we'll see you next time.